Some of gaming's greatest heroes didn't stay that way. They started as soldiers, Jedi, even bike messengers, and somewhere along the line, they crossed over to the other side. Betrayal, corruption, raw power, or just plain player choice pushed them from saving the world to threatening it. We're breaking down 5 iconic protagonists who went full villain, starting with a psychic operative who got abandoned on the worst planet imaginable. Sarah Kerrigan, StarCraft. Sarah Kerrigan might be the single most devastating protagonist betrayal in gaming history, and I don't say that lightly. She starts as a Terran ghost operative, which sounds cool until you realize what that actually means. The Confederacy took a psychic child, shoved her through a dehumanizing military program, and turned her into a cloaked assassin with lethal psionic precision. She's basically a weapon that happens to have a personality. And what a personality it is, because Kerrigan is genuinely one of the sharpest characters in the original StarCraft. Sarcastic, competent, and constantly butting heads with Arcturus Minsk, because she has this annoying habit of having a moral compass. She serves as second in command of the Sons of Korhal, Minsk's rebel faction fighting to overthrow the corrupt Terran Confederacy. Noble cause, right? Sure. Except Minsk has all the moral flexibility of a guy who would absolutely sell you out the second it became convenient, which is exactly what he does. During the assault on Tarsunis, Minsk uses the Zerg as a living weapon, luring the entire swarm to the planet to wipe out Confederate defenses. Kerrigan is sent to hold a critical position against Protoss forces, fully expecting extraction once the job is done. Instead, Minsk orders the fleet to pull out. He leaves her there, stranded. With billions of alien insects closing in, cool. Great leadership, Arcturus. The Zerg capture her and begin the infestation process, fusing her human body with Zerg bioengineering and amplifying her psionic abilities to an absurd degree. Here's the thing that makes this transformation so uniquely horrifying, though. She doesn't lose her mind. Her memories survive. She remembers exactly who abandoned her and why. She emerges as the Queen of Blades and becomes the central antagonist of Brood War. But calling her a simple villain doesn't capture it. She orchestrates betrayals against every faction in the Kaprulu sector, manipulates Terran and Protoss leaders into alliances of convenience before discarding them, and consolidates the Zerg into the most dangerous force in the galaxy, all while keeping her sardonic wit, which honestly makes it worse. She's not some mindless monster. She's the same person, just pointed in a very different direction, and this is where the fan debate gets interesting. How much of what she does as the Queen of Blades is actually her? The Overmind's influence is a factor early on, but Kerrigan eventually replaces the Overmind entirely and directs the swarm herself. At that point, you can't really blame alien mind control anymore. These are her choices. Terrible, galaxy-spanning, millions of death choices, but hers nonetheless. Some players argue the betrayal on Tarsonis makes everything afterwards understandable. Others say understandable and forgivable are very different words. But here's where it gets really weird. In StarCraft 2, Kerrigan goes through de-infestation, partial restoration of her human form, renewed swarm leadership, and then, because apparently becoming the most feared being in the galaxy wasn't enough, she ascends to become a Xel'Naga, one of the ancient cosmic entities who literally shaped the Protoss and Zerg species into existence. She goes from a sarcastic soldier to betrayed operative to alien queen to actual god. That's not a character arc. That's a character roller coaster that someone forgot to bolt to the ground. Her Xel'Naga ascension recontextualizes everything. Suddenly the question isn't, was Kerrigan evil? It's, does morality even apply to someone operating on a cosmic scale? She ends the franchise not as a defeated villain or a redeemed hero, but as something entirely beyond either category. And fans are still fighting about whether that's brilliant writing or whether Blizzard just couldn't commit to letting one of gaming's best villains stay a villain. She starts as a soldier, becomes a monster, and ends as a deity. Not all character arcs make sense. Sometimes they're just wild from beginning to end. But if you think Kerrigan's identity crisis is complicated, wait until you hear about a Jedi who forgot he was the most dangerous Sith Lord in the galaxy. Revan, Knights of the Old Republic. Most video game plot twists make you rethink a cutscene. Revan's twist makes you rethink every single decision you've made for the last 30 hours of gameplay. Because the twist isn't that someone betrayed you. The twist is that you are the villain. But let me back up, because the setup is what makes this hit so hard. Because roughly 4,000 years before the Galactic Empire even exists, Revan is a Jedi Knight. The Mandalorians are tearing the galaxy apart. And the Jedi Council's official response is to sit on their hands and do nothing. Meditation and patience while entire planets burn. Revan disagrees. He rallies a faction of Jedi, defies the Council, and leads Republic forces into the Mandalorian Wars. And he wins. Decisively. Here's where it gets complicated. After the war, Revan discovers the Starforge, an ancient space station capable of producing entire fleets from basically nothing. Instead of handing this thing over to the Republic he just bled for, he keeps it. He builds his own Sith Empire and launches the Jedi Civil War, turning his armies against the very Republic he saved. This wasn't a single moment of corruption, it was a slow erosion. Exposure to ancient Sith artifacts, witnessing atrocities the Jedi Council could have prevented. A growing conviction that the Jedi's passive approach to evil was itself a form of evil. Revan didn't wake up one morning and decide to be a Sith Lord. He convinced himself piece by piece that authoritarian control was the only way to protect the galaxy from threats the Jedi refused to acknowledge. Which is, not ideal, so the Republic is losing badly. The Jedi launch a covert operation to board Revan's flagship, but here's the kicker. Revan's own apprentice, Darth Malak, fires on the flagship during the boarding, trying to kill everyone, his master included. Revan is critically injured, barely clinging to life, and the Jedi drag what's left of him back to Dantooine, and then the Jedi Council does something genuinely disturbing. They heal his body, they save his life, and then they completely erase his mind. Every memory, every personality trait gone. They reprogram him with a fabricated identity, a loyal Republic soldier who has zero recollection of being the most dangerous man in the galaxy. Great, we fixed him. Totally normal guy. Nothing to see here. This is where you come in. The player starts Knights of the Old Republic controlling this reprogrammed Revan. You have no idea who you are. You're just some Republic grunt running missions, making friends, learning the Force. The entire game builds toward a single revelation that still ranks as one of the greatest plot twists in gaming history. You are Darth Revan. You were the Dark Lord. Some of your companions knew. The Jedi Council knew. They sent you on this mission specifically because your old neural pathways might still respond to Sith artifacts and lead them to the Starforge. You were a weapon they pointed at a problem and hoped wouldn't remember. It used to be the problem. The genius of KOTOR is what happens after the reveal. The game doesn't just drop this bomb and roll credits, it gives you a choice. The light side ending sees Revan destroy the Starforge, defeat Malak, and accept redemption. The dark side ending has Revan say, actually, I like being a Sith Lord, and reclaim the Starforge as the renewed Dark Lord of the galaxy. Both endings are powerful, but neither fully resolves the deeper question. If you don't remember being evil, are you still that person? The Jedi Council decided the answer was no. But they also decided they had the right to erase a person's entire identity without consent, which is, by any reasonable standard, a monstrous thing to do. They violated every principle of autonomy they claimed to stand for because it was convenient. Revan isn't just a character who turned evil, he's a character who turned evil, got forcibly turned good by people who arguably committed an evil act to do it, and then gets to decide for himself what he actually is, the protagonist and the antagonist of his own story, wearing the same face. But if you think Revan's moral crisis is complicated, wait until you meet a guy who genuinely believes he's the hero of his own story while committing some of the most reprehensible acts in gaming history. Handsome Jack Borderlands. Handsome Jack is the most fun villain in video game history, and that's exactly what makes him terrifying. Most protagonists who turn evil do it through trauma, corruption, or some cosmic force rewriting their brain. Jack does it because he genuinely believes he's the good guy the entire time. Every atrocity he commits, he frames as heroic. And the worst part? For a while, you almost believe him. In Borderlands, the pre-sequel, Jack starts out as a mid-level Hyperion employee on the Helios space station. When a military faction called the Lost Legion seizes control, Jack steps up. He rallies 4 Vault Hunters, leads them to retake Helios, and positions himself as the scrappy underdog, fighting impossible odds. He's sarcastic, ambitious, and genuinely funny. If you played the game without knowing what comes next, you'd think he was the hero. That's the trick. Jack doesn't just act heroic, he speaks in the language of heroism. He talks about restoring order, bringing civilization to Pandora's lawless frontier, protecting innocent people. Every power grab, every ruthless decision gets framed as a necessary step toward a better world. It sounds noble. It's also complete garbage, but he doesn't know that. Here's where it gets dark. Jack has a daughter named Angel. She's a siren, one of the rarest and most powerful beings in the Borderlands universe. Instead of protecting her, Jack forcibly connects her to Hyperion's computer systems, turning his own child into a living battery. She's imprisoned, exploited, reduced to a tool for accessing vault technology, his own daughter. He hooks her up to machines and drains her like a resource. This is widely considered his moral event horizon. You can debate whether his early actions were justified. You can argue Pandora's chaos warranted a strong response, but the moment you imprison your own kid and use her as infrastructure, you're done. And it's not isolated. Jack regularly kills his own employees for amusement, not out of strategic necessity, for fun. The charming exterior is just a mask stretched over something fundamentally broken. He's a sociopath who happens to be hilarious, which is somehow worse. By Borderlands 2, Jack has seized total control of Hyperion, declared himself dictator of Pandora, and claimed credit for killing the Destroyer, which he absolutely did not do. He governs through propaganda, violent spectacle, and casual execution. Standard dictator stuff, just with better one-liners. But here's the kicker, Jack never stops calling himself the hero. He refers to the Vault Hunters opposing him as terrorists. He frames brutal crackdowns as peacekeeping. He describes mass murder as bringing order. It mirrors real-world authoritarian rhetoric so precisely it's almost uncomfortable. Jack just does it while cracking jokes about pretzels and diamond horses. The gap between how Jack sees himself and what he actually is, that's the entire joke and the entire horror. He's not lying when he says he's the hero. He believes it. He's constructed an entire reality where everything he does is justified and he will never question it. That's scarier than any monster in any vault. Even death can't shut him up. Despite being killed in Borderlands 2, an AI version of Jack shows up in Tales from the Borderlands, still charming, still dangerous, still absolutely convinced he's right. He even appears as a weapon in later games, the handsome jackhammer, with his AI literally trapped inside the gun. The man became a gun and he's still talking. I don't know what to tell you. That persistence is darkly funny, but genuinely unsettling. Jack isn't just a villain you defeat, he's a stain you can't wash out. His propaganda, his infrastructure, his ideology, it all outlives him. Killing him doesn't undo the systems he built. He designed it that way, because of course he did. What makes Jack one of the most memorable antagonists in modern gaming is that the pre-sequel lets you watch the descent in real time. You see a guy with arguably good intentions become a monster through unchecked ambition, zero accountability, and the dangerous belief that wanting to be a hero is the same as being one. He never has a dramatic fall. He just keeps making choices that feel reasonable to him and catastrophic to everyone else. But if Jack's transformation is fueled by delusion about who he is, the next entry involves a protagonist who literally becomes something inhuman, and unlike Jack, he doesn't even get to keep his sense of humor about it. Alex Mercer Prototype. Most characters on this list had a moment, a betrayal, a choice, a breaking point you can point to and say that's where it went wrong. Alex Mercer didn't get that luxury. One day he's the protagonist, the next game he's the final boss. And the worst part is, nobody's entirely sure if Alex Mercer even exists anymore. Here's the setup. Mercer was a scientist at Gentek, a corporation so shady it makes Umbrella look transparent. They were neck deep in military bioweapons research, developing something called the Blacklight virus, which is exactly as fun as it sounds. When things started going sideways and Mercer realized his employers were the kind of people who solve problems by killing everyone who knows about the problem, he panicked, released the virus, got exposed to it, died, and then woke up on a morgue slab. See, that's the thing nobody talks about enough. The Alex Mercer you play as in the first prototype might not actually be Alex Mercer. The Blacklight virus consumed his corpse and rebuilt something in his shape, something with his memories and his face, but fundamentally made of viral biomass. He can shapeshift. He can consume people whole and absorb their memories, their skills, their appearance. He's basically a walking biological apocalypse wearing a hoodie, but in that first game, he's your guy. He's the protagonist. You're running around Manhattan trying to figure out what Gentek did, who's responsible for the outbreak, and what exactly you've become. He fights corrupt military commanders, he takes down unethical scientists, he punches helicopters out of the sky, which is honestly kind of endearing. The game frames his violence as a necessary response to an impossible situation, and if you squint hard enough, you can almost call him a hero. Almost. Because here's where it gets complicated. The first prototype mechanically doesn't care about civilians at all. You can elbow drop onto a crowded street, consume innocent bystanders for health, and use grandmothers as thrown projectiles, and the game just sort of shrugs. There's zero punishment, no karma system, no reputation meter, nothing. The game accepts mass civilian casualties as background noise, which makes Mercer's supposed heroism feel paper thin even before the sequel throws it in the garbage, and throw it in the garbage it does. By Prototype 2, Alex Mercer has completely flipped. The canonical explanation is that between games, he lost faith in humanity and found more and more reasons to hate humanity rather than protect it. That's essentially the entire psychological justification the series gives you. A couple of sentences, he went from anti-hero to genocidal supervillain, and the narrative bridges that gap with what amounts to a post-it note. In the sequel, you don't play as Mercer, you play as Sergeant James Heller, a soldier whose family was killed in the outbreak Mercer caused. Mercer is now the primary antagonist, manipulating events from the shadows, engineering new outbreaks, and generally acting like someone who watched humanity for a while and decided the whole species was a failed experiment. He's sadistic, he's calculating, he's everything the first game only hinted he could become. And this is where the fan debate gets genuinely interesting, because the canonical detail on Mercer's inner psychology is, to put it charitably, thin. The series doesn't give you philosophical monologues or tortured diary entries. You get terse declarations of contempt and then more monsters. Some players read this as a writing flaw, a sequel that needed a villain, and decided the easiest option was just flipping the previous protagonist without doing the legwork to earn it. Others argue it's actually more unsettling this way. That the abruptness is the point. Whatever Alex Mercer was, the virus ate it. There's nothing left to reason with because there's nothing left, period. Unlike every other entry on this list, Mercer's turn doesn't come from a dramatic betrayal or a player choice or a slow philosophical corruption. It comes from something biological. The Blacklight virus didn't just give him powers, it replaced him. Every person he consumed, every memory he absorbed, every form he took pushed him further from whatever the original Alex Mercer might have been. By the time he shows up as the villain of Prototype 2, the question isn't why did Alex Mercer turn evil? The question is, was there ever an Alex Mercer to turn? I don't know what to tell you, the series certainly doesn't. Whether you see this as a carefully built tragedy about identity dissolving into something monstrous, or a developer taking a shortcut to justify a new protagonist, the result is the same. You spend an entire game as this character. You fight through his story, you watch him struggle, and then the next game loads up and tells you, everything you did was prologue to a villain origin story. Your hero became the final boss, and he didn't even have the decency to explain why. But if Mercer's transformation happened because something inhuman overwrote who he was, the next entry is almost the opposite. A protagonist who stays completely human the entire time and still chooses to become the worst version of himself. Cole McGrath, infamous Evil Path. Every other character on this list had something else to blame. Kerrigan had Minsk's betrayal. Revan had Sith artifacts rewiring his brain. Mercer had a virus literally consuming his humanity. Jack had corporate backstabbing and a planet full of psychopaths. Cole McGrath has you. That's what makes him the most unsettling name on this entire list. His evil isn't scripted, it isn't inevitable, it's a choice, and it's yours. Here's the setup. Cole is a bike messenger in Empire City. Not a soldier, not a scientist, not a Jedi. He delivers packages. One day, he delivers the wrong one. The ray sphere detonates in his hands, flattens 6 city blocks, kills thousands of people, and gives him the ability to shoot lightning from his fingertips. He wakes up in a crater that used to be a neighborhood, and now he has to decide what kind of person he's going to be. The game tracks that decision through its karma system, and it doesn't mess around. Every choice pushes Cole toward hero or infamous. Share food with starving civilians, or keep it for yourself. Save hostages, or ignore them. Restrain your powers, or level an entire block because 3 enemies were standing on it. The system changes Cole's appearance, his available powers, how NPCs react to him, even the weather itself. Go full hero and Empire City starts to recover. Go full villain, and the place looks like it's rotting from the inside out. And that's the thing about the evil path. It's not one dramatic moment where Cole snaps. It's dozens of small decisions compounding into something genuinely horrifying. You stop caring about collateral damage, then you stop caring about civilians entirely. Then, you start actively draining people of their bioelectricity because it's faster than finding a generator. Every mechanical reward reinforces the descent. You're not watching Cole become a villain. You're building him into one, brick by brick. But the real darkness comes in Infamous 2. Cole relocates to New Moraes to prepare for the Beast, a colossal conduit barreling down the East Coast and annihilating everything in its path. The game introduces 2 allies representing completely different philosophies. Nyx, who believes power should be used without restraint, and Quo, an idealistic agent who wants to do things the right way. Neither one is entirely wrong, which makes the whole thing worse. In the evil ending, Cole discovers the Beast isn't just destroying cities for fun. It's activating the conduit gene in humans, transforming survivors into super-powered beings while killing everyone who doesn't carry the gene. Millions dead. And Cole looks at this and says yes. He sides with the Beast. He helps trigger the Rayfield blast across the entire population, fully aware that it will kill massive portions of humanity while creating a new species of conduits. He's not mind-controlled, he's not infected, he believes conduits are the next step in evolution and ordinary humans are acceptable losses, which is, not ideal. Cole McGrath, former bike messenger, becomes an apocalyptic figure who actively chooses to reshape the world through mass extinction. He doesn't just turn evil, he becomes the kind of evil that rewrites civilizations. But here's what separates Cole from every other name we've talked about today. When Kerrigan became the Queen of Blades, you watched it happen. When Revan fell to the dark side, the lore told you about it. When Mercer lost his humanity, the virus did the heavy lifting. With Cole, there are no justifications, no external corruption, no betrayal that broke him. The game handed you a normal person with extraordinary power and said, what are you going to do with this? And you chose destruction, not Cole. You. Every selfish decision, every civilian you drained, every time you picked the red option because the powers looked cooler, that was you deciding that power mattered more than people. The game doesn't judge you for it, it just watches you build a monster out of a mailman and presents the consequences without flinching. The evil ending of Infamous 2 is one of the heaviest moments in gaming because it forces a question none of the other characters on this list can ask. Did power corrupt Cole McGrath? Or were you always going to choose destruction the moment someone gave you the option? The game doesn't answer that. The fact that you're sitting there watching the credits roll over a world you personally helped destroy is answer enough. And that's the thing about every protagonist on this list who turned evil. Whether it was betrayal, infection, manipulation, or corporate ambition, there was always a moment where the path forward split in two. Some of them never got to choose, some of them chose wrong, and some of them had the choice made for them by the person holding the controller. Not all of those stories have a moral, but they all have a mirror. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.